Welcome to the Divergent AF podcast. I'm your host, Selena Thompson, a late diagnosed ADHD mother on a hashtag journey to unapologetic authenticity. Dive into the rabbit hole realness with me as we overshare unfiltered and relatable stories of what neurodivergent life is really like. Lifting the lid on the honest, hilarious, and heartbreaking topics typically confined to our inner monologue. Get ready to feel seen and heard as we ditch the to-do list, the daily planners, but most importantly, the shame. Welcome back to the Divergent AF podcast. I'm your host, Selena Thompson, and yes, it has been a hot minute. And by hot minute, I mean it has been a few weeks since I released my last episode, if anyone cares. I do because I've let myself down. But I just thought that I wanted to release just one more. I was always planning on doing seasons or SZN. You know, when people put SZN, in my head I just see SZN, Libra SZN, baby. So I wanted to wrap up season 1 of the Divergent AF podcast and take a break over the Christmas period and then come back if I still have the will to live and the motivation to get through this. No, I'm joking. I was always coming to come back next year using all the knowledge and lessons that I've learned along the way, the hard way, of course, because that's the only way I seem to learn. I don't know about you, but I have to live and learn through the experience of, fucking it up or whatever, or the hard way. Someone could tell me something, but I just say, yeah. But then, yeah, they're right. So anyway, I just thought I would wrap it up. This is going to be number 13, and I'm going to release it on the 13th of December because I'm a woo-boo like that. I was always planning on doing just 11 or 12, but life and life fuckingings really got in the way, especially the last few months, and that was why my episodes have been quite sporadic or quite spread out because I was really just going through it, and if there's one thing about me, I can't just bring myself to the table authentically if I'm dealing with fucking horrendous trauma or something's happened to me like that. And I think that eventually I do want to share what the things that I've learnt this year. But I always like to come at it when I've really processed it, when I've really settled my emotions down, because I used to look at things that would happen to me and be like, fuck, again, of course this happens to me, blah, blah, blah. Now I kind of take more of a humorous approach to it. My life is probably more like a traumedy. It's like trauma, but funny. Because if you don't laugh, you die, honestly. I think the more shit that I go through and my other ADHD friends go through, the funnier we get. Yeah, you've got to take something from it. But anyway, going back to it, I like to look back on hard times that I've been through and see the positive from it and the beauty from it, because I really have a mindset that, creation and destruction go hand in hand. And while I'm not sitting here saying that when things are falling to shit, I'm just like, yeah, positive, this is beautiful. No, God, no. But once you get out the tunnel and you look back, that was fine, wasn't it? It's like giving birth. You just block all that stuff out and then you do it again. I think that's the trick of the brain where it's kind of a coping mechanism to help you forget really hard shit, or really how hard it was at the time, so that you can look back and just remember the good things about it. But anyway, that's all I'll say about that for now. But I really just wanted to do one more finishing off episode for this, because I have been really neglecting this podcast. A big part of that was I hate the admin side of this. If anyone has their own podcast, you get what I'm saying, right? I love to yap. I'm a yapper. I feel like I yap so much these days because I am making up for all the lost time where I was a mute and I was invisible at school and things like that. And that was mainly because I don't know what the hell was going on with me. I just thought I was dumb. I had a lag in cognition, but now I understand where it was all coming from. then I went on medication, and I'm at a point now where honestly medication has actually changed my brain on kind of like a neurological level. So apparently this can happen, but I can miss days and I'm the same. It's like the bridge between my thought processes in my brain and my mouth has been repaired, and I can just go for it. I have a extremely fast stream of consciousness. I have so many ideas, I have so many thoughts, I make so many connections, and I've just got a lot of shit to say. And that's why I did want to start this podcast. But I've really grown into it because it's actually really scary as shit. But I also love that side of it too. That's a part of me. I love doing scary shit because there's nothing better than this adrenaline high that you come away and, you've just done something absolutely that you never thought you'd be able to do, or you never have been done. And I live for those moments in life. I can think of a few of them. Recent one was when I did an episode with the Brink podcast with Matthew Ridge and David Ring. And I look at their other guests like Mike King and just really important people. And then there was me, and I just went full force at it. And coming off of that was a high. And I live for that stuff. I live for climbing the mountain. My friend says it's when you don't have a bone to chew on, that's when you get bored and depressed and self-destructive. And she's right. I always need to have just something to light the fire in my ass, really. I do. So in saying that, while this has been such a scary, put yourself out there experience, I love everything that I've learned along the way. And I love that I feel that I am growing into it more and getting more confident, and also being more confident about what I'm actually talking about and what I am putting out there. Because if you have listened from the very beginning, and you're not even my friend, because I made all my friends listen to it, obviously, I listened back to it, and it was, you got to start somewhere. I'm a really big believer that you've just got to start. You're never going to be perfect when you start something new, and that's the beauty of it. I love it because then you can improve, and then you can grow. And it's a really good thing that no one knows who I am, so I can make all these fuck ups along the way and improve because it doesn't matter. But I listen back to the first episodes or formal ones, and I can hear myself slowly over time just becoming the person that I am to my friends. So to my friends, and, usually the VMs that I leave them, I'm outrageous. I've always been told, you need to start a podcast because you are just hilarious and crass and rude and ridiculous, but then also intelligent. And, it's been a process. So I feel like the real me that is reserved for usually my close friends is coming more to the surface, because I am at a point now where I can truly say that I fucking love who I am and I love myself. And that's a really hard place to get to, I think, for women, and especially late diagnosed. And I look at some of my friends that are, starting their journey through, they've just been diagnosed, and I can see the progression of their confidence increasing, because I really do think that we've been gaslit by society in general. I really think that's what happens with neurodivergent people. And a big reason is that I think that we are very perceptive, and we can see a lot of bullshit for what it is. We can see the truth, we can see patterns, we can predict what's going to happen. But when you verbalize that to people that aren't ready for it, or they don't want to know it, or they are just not aware, you'll be called oversensitive, you'll be called crazy, you'll be called paranoid. But when you get that conditioning all your life, right, that is how you get self-doubt. That is how you get low self-esteem. That is what blows your confidence. But I'm telling you, it's them, not us. I swear to God, every time I have had a fucking theory or a feeling or I've just known something, I've been bloody right. The only thing that I've learned from it is that just because you know and you can talk about the truth and you can be honest, you've got to pick the right audience. If you think that they're not someone that's just going to receive it, or they can't look themselves in the goddamn mirror, just leave it. Believe me, just leave it. I always make a decision now that if I know something is true, if I can tell someone is bullshitting me, or if I can see what's going to happen, but if I think they're just not the right audience, it actually does not serve me. It doesn't do me any good telling the truth at all. So I just leave it and I'll laugh inside because, I don't know about you, but I can just spot a fucking liar a mile away. I really can. And so instead of getting into an argument and calling them out and being like, oh yes, I speak my truth, sometimes speaking your truth is just exhausting, because you're just going to get into an argument of defending yourself about being paranoid and sensitive. But I just leave it now. I leave it now. There's only a few people, and it's because they're exactly like me, that we can see through each other and be transparent and be open and be honest and own our flaws, and that's it. But if it's with someone who is just not on that same kind of plane, just leave it. Honestly, that's what I've learned from it all. It just doesn't do you any good. And at the end of the day, I really believe that you've got to fucking protect your own energy and your own mental well-being, and especially us, because I feel that a lot of us have been people pleasers. I have been, and it's a real trap. And, you bend over backwards, you do everything for everyone just to be approved of because you're a bit different deep down, hiding it from the world, but you just get used and abused and discarded and then labeled crazy or paranoid or, it's horrible. As you can probably tell by now, this episode doesn't have a structure. I'm full ADHDing this. And I also want to own it because, having a structured podcast and structured episodes about ADHD is not ADHD. How ironic is that? So while I know that I have been quite sporadic with the episodes that I've been putting out and what I've been talking about, that is us to a T. That is actually ADHD in force. So, I go through phases, right? So I've been really heavy into Instagram and TikTok more. I don't know why, because a few months ago I hated it and I didn't want to go. Had lost all the inspo for it, and all I wanted to do was the podcast. And then something changes, the tide changes, the wind changes with us. And then we're like, oh no, actually, I'm really, really, really interested in that. And I don't want to do that anymore. And, you can't just force art, If you force it, it's like a fart. It'll be shit. That's how I feel. And that's how we roll. And no, it doesn't make us good employees. I'll fucking own that. And that's, I think, a reason why most ADHD people I know work for themselves or they contract, because we've all just been burnt by the 9-to-5s. We really have, because we just can't maintain that type of consistency. We're brilliant, but that doesn't last forever. It's a real up, down, up, down, up, down. And they have really come to just lean into it and own it. And, at the moment, I'm fresh out of a burnout phase. And so this is when I'm on fire. This is when I'm like, oh, this is the best feeling in the world. But I know that this won't last. I know that I will go full bore at everything, and then suddenly, you just can't sustain that type of energy and inertia forever, and I'll go into a burnout, and then I won't talk to anyone for a week, and I'll sleep, and but then I'll come out, and that is so the life, I feel, of the ADHD. I just really wanted to take a pause and just reflect on the last 12 months of my life, which I've alluded to a lot, and I haven't really gone into all the details because I want to kind of deliver things and do it justice. I don't want to come at it from a place where I'm angry or I'm bitter or I'm upset, I like to kind of deliver things from a place of peace and what I've taken from it. Because that's the best way, I think, to look back at something and just not have regrets about what you were saying and putting out there when you weren't stable table or when you were still really driven by the emotions. I'm never out to be on a witch hunt or tear people down or be nasty. I really like to leave things gracefully and peacefully. And the only time I will turn into a motherfucking savage is if my boundaries are repeatedly crossed. You come for me, you come for my kids. That's a very, very, very different side of me. And I am at peace with it. I know now from all the time that I've spent alone and trying to just heal myself and really take stock of what the hell has gone wrong in your life. Where do you go wrong? What do you do wrong? Taking the responsibility and looking at it from all angles, because you can have toxic relationships or friendships or whatever, but, I always believe that, you've also been a part to play in it and you've invited it in or you've attracted it for whatever reason. And why is that? Taking a look at that. And look, I know everyone has their personal beliefs and their personal opinions, and I love that. That's what makes life. I love talking to different people. I love meeting different people from all walks of life that can have radically different ideas or opinions. As long as it's not encroaching or harming or hurting, I have absolutely no problem with that. And I know that a lot of people don't live that way. And, there's a lot of judgment out there. And a lot of people have a lot of things to say when it's not to your face or it's on the internet. But I am always the type of person that I can engage face to face. I've just been over here trying to really work and improve on myself and really take account and take ownership of how I have landed myself in insanely horrendous, traumatic experiences throughout my whole life. A big part of me is quite intellectual and philosophical, and you wouldn't know it when you first meet me because, at the same time, I'm also childish and immature, and toilet jokes and farts will always be funny, always. But then I can have really high level discussions, and it's just a real paradox, and I've learned that about myself, and it's really unusual. And it's all based on being a very kind of unique personality type, which I've learned all about, and now I can own it and not kind of hide either part of me. I know it's confusing to people. I know that, I can drop F-bombs and say like really inappropriate out the gate stuff, but then I also know that I can get into a high level debate with, someone that is of high intelligence and I can keep up. And I'm always learning and I've always got a thirst for knowledge and I always love to ask questions and I want to know. And it's just a real paradox and I love it. But going into paradoxes, I really believe in duality and light and dark. And, I did this workbook, or I'm working through it. I'm not going to lie. I'm still working through it. And they call it shadow work. Shadow work. Gosh, I'm not going all woo-woo on you here, believe me. But what I'm saying is that I learned to integrate both my dark sides and my light sides because I can fully say that I am capable of horrendous things. I can think horrendous things, as everyone can. But I think I'm aware of the damage that I can cause and what I'm capable of, but I choose not to. It's there. If I ever needed to bring it out, it's there. But I will live peacefully. Does that make sense to you? I know that Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. And look, I'm not saying everything Jordan Peterson says I agree with because, again, I'm very grey. I'm not black and white. I'm very grey. Some of his things I don't agree with. I don't need to tell anyone. I just don't agree with it. Some of them I do. There's not someone that I follow and I worship and I believe everything that comes out of their mouth. I always discern for myself, and I always like to make my own decision. And that can piss people off when you're asking questions, but I just like to come to my own conclusions. But I know that he talked a lot about, what makes a good person or what makes a strong person is knowing that you are dangerous or you are capable of abhorrent things, but not using it and having the control over that. And because that is different from being a weak person. And when I think of weak, I think of how I used to be, like people pleasing. People that sit on the fence, that don't have opinions, that just want everyone to like them. Those are the worst people, in my opinion. And I used to be one of them. And I don't value that. And I am fully aware that I can burn bridges, just at the drop of a hat, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to. But if someone crosses the line, my line that I've decided is my line, if you know what I mean, and people know this about me, if someone starts a war, then I'll be ending it. When you take a shot, you make sure that bastard's never getting up again. I'll throw all my might at it. And so it's a real kind of kill switch. And I know that about myself. And I know that, and I get it under control. I'm probably the sweetest savage you ever meet. And I've learned that about myself throughout this whole year of being alone. It's just crazy to think just where I was, kind of at the start of the year and how much I've changed. When I started this podcast, I was living in an Airbnb. Initially had to sell items on designer wardrobes so I could afford to move out into an Airbnb. And I lived there for 2.5 months. I didn't have a laundry, and I used to either get the lovely owner, Sarah, she would do some of my laundry, but then I didn't want to put it all on her. So then I would travel around to my friends' houses with a black rubbish bag with washing. I would have washing at different houses, I had loads in different area codes. I really did. And I had to keep track of they're wet at that house. They're half wet there, they're dry there. And I really got to a place where it didn't really matter what clothes I was wearing. If they were in the house that I was living in, and if they were dry, I'd be putting them on. It really humbled me. And, I always wanted to start a podcast because my friends are so sick of me yapping at them in the VMs all the time. And I'm really passionate about what I am trying to do and trying to change. But when I first started it, it was not the ideal timing. I was only a few weeks into living into this Airbnb. It was much smaller than what I'm used to, but it was beautiful. We called it Miss Mummy's Cottage. And I have really fond memories of that place, even though it was just rock bottom. I had always had plans to, start a podcast this year, and, things just don't go to plan. And the separation happened. I had to leave my kids, my dog, my cats, my home, and live in an Airbnb with no laundry, but with a beautiful, amazing family I'm getting emotional, but I really believe that you meet people for a reason. I'm crying because I just have so much love and gratitude for this family that really took me on because, just by unfortunate timing, which is my life, my parents were overseas and I don't have siblings. My best friend, also called Sarah, I came and picked me up off the ground and she goes, right, you got 10 more minutes, then we're getting you up and we're moving you out of this house. And that was just a really just shocking day for me. But that movie with the rock climber, and it was a true story, he gets his arm jammed in the rocks and in the end he has to, just cut his arm off to keep living. That is exactly how I felt. The family that I lived next door to, essentially, because it was a little kind of secondary dwelling off from the main house. I wanted to be around people. I wanted to feel safe and secure. And it was actually the right thing to do, because one night I burst into their house at about 1 a.m. because my son was having severe breathing problems and I just couldn't get a handle on the situation. Then I had my second one and she was getting upset, and I just remember, thank God they were there to ring the ambulance. And that was another reason why I think, people are brought into your life for a reason. I was meant to just find this incredible family. And I just really cherish my time there. But when I moved out finally, we were both crying because she didn't want me to leave. I didn't want to leave. It was just beautiful. And I just really value that I've met, such a beautiful, incredible woman and her family. I still talk to her and I still see her. And, I look at that horrible period of my life, but I look at what I gained, and I've just met some incredible people. I'm forever grateful for every person that has fucking held me up this year. And they know who they are because they've seen me in some really bad situations, some really bad states, and not once have they judged me or left my side or, thought anything less. They've really propped me up. And again, I'm emotional because it's just like love. It really made me see a different side of fucking humanity when you go through extremes like that. It really opened my eyes up to who was around me and who I want to be around me, who I am and what I value. And that is the absolute beauty. And this is why I think I'm ending this year just feeling at peace and so zen. When you go through hell and you lose everything that you thought was your constant and everything is new, it gives you just this, it is just the most humbling experience. And, I see beauty in the smallest things now. The smallest things can make me really happy, things that I didn't stop and appreciate because you're just so distracted, you're so busy. But when you're really alone and you just want to find meaning or purpose, you just open your eyes and you look at everything. And then, I'm now one of those people that takes pictures of clouds, and I get really happy and almost emotional when I see a pretty cloud. I mean, God forbid, right? But it does. It's made me take happiness from the smallest things. And I love that. I couldn't have gotten to that place if I hadn't been through what I'd been through. So anyway, the first episodes, or the first half of, this podcast, I was filming it in my Airbnb, usually late at night because I just was so distraught. I'd be sobbing, get it all out, and then I would just be recording an episode. And the reason why I wanted to keep going with it, and this is a quality of mine, is that I just don't give up. When someone says to me, you can't do this, or you think you can do this, but you're all talk, that is probably the worst thing you could ever say to me, because you best believe I will break my back doing it, that I love the challenge. And all throughout my life, when someone or people have had conceived notions about me that I wasn't strong enough, that I couldn't do this, I've pushed myself to do it. And I love that about myself. I really do. Either I might, do it the hard way or the long way, but I will never, ever take no for an answer. When I have something in my head and when I have a decision or a goal, I will fucking go for it. And I feel that's a very ADHD thing. There's no in between. That's who we are. I think that is where the magic can happen, and that is when you can shift and you can change your mindset and you can start to own it and start to love it and start to work with it. Because if I've learned anything about ADHD, is that you'll never get rid of it. You won't. You will never get rid of it. It's a part of us, You're going to live with it. You're going to die with it. So you can either fight it and hate it and get upset and frustrated, but from anything that I've learned is that
that is just such a waste of your energy. Our brains cannot be tamed. We're like Kanye. We cannot be managed, right? And that's cool because, yeah, we have failures, but we never stop trying. I notice a theme with us. We have a million failures under our belt and we just get up and we try it again and we try again. And then eventually, well, it has to work, Probability says that if you never give up, eventually something will work. And that's what I love about us. And that's what I love about neurodivergent people. And I just think it's an amazing quality. So, in just wrapping up this random ramble fest, which is just me to a core, ADHD to a core, I just wanted to say, if you've been listening to this from the very start and, you weren't one of my friends that were held at gunpoint almost, so you had to listen to it, just thank you. I hope that it's given you something. And I hope that I can continue to give you some humanity or to give you some insight or just to give you some narrative that you can relate to, because that's all I want to do. I'm not over here proclaiming to be the smartest bitch on the block. I'm really not. I'm just I don't know about normal, but I'm just another human being just sharing or wanting to share the real experiences that we go through, because I know that in each ADHD person I meet, they're just magic and brilliant and entertaining and funny and just real. And all I ever want to do is just share my shit with no shame, so you can feel no shame. If you can take anything out of this so far, is that I hope you know that you're not broken. You're fucking brilliant. And I'll see you next year, bitches. Bye!